background that you're going to see is me using the silver level build against the diamond level Terran. Now, there's one thing that's important to note. There comes a point in the game where I place down 2 spore crawlers despite not seeing my opponent go for banshees at all. The reason I do that is my brain goes, well, I'm starting roach production, so any kind of mech play with, Thors, Hellions, it's not going to be a big deal. I also saw that he lost 2 Hellions early on, but I saw 4 more out on the map. That means the chances of a big Bioforce coming at me, very, very small. The chances of Banshee or Cloak Banshee coming at me, very high. The other thing that I take into account is the fact that I look at it and I go, well, what's dangerous right now? Well, Cloak Banshees would be very dangerous because I wouldn't have much of a way to deal with them outside of the queens that I had. If they cloak, I'd have to wait for an Overseer. So I make the 2 spore crawlers, 1 in each one of my mineral lines, just to protect myself against the Banshees. He makes Banshees, it ends up working out for me really, really well. But at the end of the day, I only invested in 2 spore crawlers to defend against the one thing that could really do damage to me. The second game that I play, what my opponent does is go for Zergling into Muta. I go for Mass Roach. I kill his whole base with my roaches and eventually cleans him up with his mutas. So I have to transition into Hydra. I still don't bother taking a 3rd base or anything because the game is basically over. But it should give you a pretty good idea of just how strong it is. My opponent in that game is a Platinum player going for Zergling Muta, and I kill him with Roach. And he has a lot of mutas by the time I get to his base, so it's not too difficult to do stuff like that if you're playing smooth and you feel like you're playing well. The other thing that I don't mention in the video that I really should have is one of the biggest things is every single game, good luck, have fun, your opponent. When you lose, GG. I find for me personally it really helps me clear my mind out and I kind of get rid of the negative thoughts regardless of how I lost. So just keep that in mind. Just type GG when you leave. Type good luck, have fun at the start of the game. Be friendly. Enjoy. Hey everybody, this is Filtersc StarCraft and welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a 4-part series that is aimed at everybody. The idea behind these videos is to help people combat ladder anxiety, help cope them with, getting to a new league. So if you're a gold player, you're getting to platinum, you've never been to platinum before, it's a scary place. I want to kind of help you cope with that and push forward and get your game better so that you can make it all the way up to Masters. So that's kind of the purpose behind this series. The 4 parts are going to be pretty simple. Part 1 is going to be about maintaining a positive attitude and not making excuses. Part 2 is going to be all about setting goals. And Part 3 is going to be about pushing yourself. So how you can push yourself and to be a better player, to continue improving, to just force yourself to play those games when you really don't feel like playing them. Part 4 is going to be all about having fun. You gotta remember, StarCraft 2, as much as you want to get better, as much as you want to get Masters, as much as you want to get Diamond, whatever your goal is, it's all about having fun. You want to make sure you're enjoying the game and not just pushing yourself to the point where the game just isn't any fun anymore. So I'm going to talk about that in Part 4. Now, the real purpose of this series of videos is to really crack down and combat ladder anxiety. There's a lot of people out there that have watched my videos and they really enjoyed them, they've improved a lot. There's also a lot of people that are kind of struggling to improve, despite a lot of the lessons out there I feel that are pretty good and able to kind of push somebody to the next level. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, because one of the most important things about this game is you have to remember you're not going to be able to get from Bronze to Masters in the course of a week. You're not going to get there in 2 weeks. It's not something that just happens overnight because you learn to play a little bit better. It takes time to develop things like the ability to deal with a certain cheese. It takes time to develop game sense. These are things that you can't always teach in a video, but you do have to learn over time, and that's something that I've learned over the 2 years I've played this game. So it does take time to develop those skills. So it's important to remember that to get from Bronze to Masters, you're looking at a fairly large chunk of time. But if you set goals and you combat your ladder anxiety, you're going to be in good shape. You're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So that's really the main purpose here. I want to help people keep playing the game. One of the most rewarding things I get is when people send me a message on my YouTube inbox or Team Liquid or whatever, and they say, hey, thanks for making these videos. You show me a lot of really cool stuff. Like, I quit playing StarCraft 2 months ago, but I saw your videos and I was excited to get back and playing. And to me, that's really, really cool. That's what makes StarCraft StarCraft, right? People out there having fun and enjoying the game. So that's what I want to try to provide with these videos. So the first thing you really want to do when you load up StarCraft and you get ready to play some ladder games is be positive. It's a pretty overused concept, but at the same time, I try to go, if you ever watch my stream, I try to go into every single game with a positive attitude that I'm going to be able to win. It's not a cocky attitude, It's a positive attitude. I don't care if I draw somebody all the way from Grandmasters in a practice game all the way down to a Bronze Leaguer. I feel like I can out-macro them, outplay them, and I'm going to win that game. It doesn't always work out that way. You know, my win-loss record in Masters is probably 50-50, somewhere around there. But it's really important to remember that if you play your game and you play really well, you're going to beat anybody, no matter what the league is. So if you're one of those players who just got promoted from Silver to Gold League and you're worried about Gold League players, or I had somebody who just did their placements and they got placed in Platinum and they're really worried about that because they'd only been working on the Bronze League stuff, be confident, go into the games, with a positive attitude. If you go into a game going, I just got another Protoss player, I'm going to lose, you're probably going to lose the game. You're going to make silly mistakes that you don't normally make. You're going to play a little bit slower. You're going to really struggle to push yourself and push your own game to that next level. So it's really, really important to be positive when you go into a game. So as soon as you go find match, you get your opponent, their Zerg, their Protoss, their Terran, doesn't matter, go, okay, cool, I got this. I'm going to do this play. I got my plan laid out. I'm ready to go. I'm going to beat this guy. Be no issue. Now the second part about being positive is go into the game with no fear. If you go into a game with no fear, you're going to be in great shape. What I mean by no fear is if you draw a Protoss opponent, don't go, he could blink stalker me, he could DT rush me, he could proxy void ray me, he can do all this crazy stuff that's going to kill me off. No fear. Assume it's going to be a macro game. Assume you're going to execute your build and you're going to win. If you scout something like that, react to it. But don't go into the game fearing what he can do. All that's going to do is cause you to miss stuff in your build, slow your own game down, and you might not die to DTs, but you're certainly going to die to everything else he does. So if you want to play a macro game, go into it with no fear. You can't go into the game expecting to lose or expecting a DT rush or expecting blink stalkers. You have to be prepared to react to it, but go into it with no fear. The other thing to consider is no excuses. What I mean when I say no excuses are, some days you come home and you just worked an 8-hour shift, you're tired. Some days it's too cold in your room, some days it's too hot in your room. Some days maybe you just feel a little bit tired or your head's a little bit sore, you're not really sure that you can play all that well. No excuses. Remember, these are things that everybody deals with. If you only ever play ladder when you feel perfect, you're only ever going to play on a Saturday afternoon when things are going your way, and overall your improvement is going to be very, very slow. If you set a goal that you want to play a certain game or a certain number of games every day, and you come home from work and you're tired and you really don't feel like playing StarCraft, you're not going to play, you're not going to improve, you're not going to get better. It's going to be really hard for you to start bridging the gap between all the leagues because you're just not going to play that much. So if you have a situation where you are tired, it's too cold, it's too hot, whatever it ends up being, just play through it. Start those 2 or 3 games. Make sure you're having fun, because that's kind of the most important part. That's why we all play StarCraft, and it is a very mentally exhausting game. But as you get used to coming home from work when you are tired after those 8 hours, you sit down in your chair and you play a few games of StarCraft, you're going to start to feel more relaxed with it. It's going to start to feel more normal. That first game might not go your way, but that second game probably will. And you're going to really start to sharpen up your mind, feel better, and you're going to be able to keep going. So never blame anything on a condition that is out of your control. So if you've been out all night or whatever, then hey, that's a different story. But if you come home from work and you're tired, whatever, play StarCraft. Just get it done. Don't make any excuses. If it's something you can't control that's going to mess you up a little bit, don't worry about it. Just play your games. You're never going to be in a situation where you feel perfect all the time. Same thing goes for programmers. Those guys don't feel perfect every day, but they get it done. They keep practicing. They're always learning. There's always new things to do. So if you're tired, you come home from a long day at work, you don't really feel like StarCraft, jump in, play a few games, make sure it's fun, but you'll be in a lot better shape and you're going to find that you're going to start really getting into it a lot easier. So don't make excuses. Don't say, I feel this way, this isn't right, I can only play when I'm feeling this way. It's not going to work, you're not going to have success. It's really important to just play the games. Now, in regards to actual StarCraft and continuing to be positive, there's lots of things you can do. One of the big things is when you lose a game and you lose it badly, I lose a lot on ladder to cheese. I've lost the games where I've been like, my opponent 4-gated me, that was really stupid, and I watched the replay and all he did was a 3-gate pressure with an expand. I died to it because I didn't control my SVs properly to repair my bunker. So it's really, really important to just watch your bad losses, figure out where you made the mistake and where you can correct it, and then move on. Be positive about it. Don't feel like it's the end of the world because you lost to a certain build that you always seem to lose to. Look for the mistake, figure it out, move on to the next game, Be positive, don't fear that same loss again. A lot of cheese play you're going to see on the ladder. If you got the same opponent for a second game in a row and you tried the same thing again, you'd hold a no problem. It's really important to recognize that fact. Doesn't matter really realistically what your opponent does. If you've never seen it before and you're not prepared for it, chances are you are going to lose to it. So it's not a big deal. It's not a reflection on your own skill. It's not a reflection on your own ability. Just keep pushing forward, watch the game, figure out where you made your mistake, move on really quickly. Now, outside of a bad loss where you can clearly identify your opponent did something and you just weren't prepared for it, there's what's called, or what I like to call, a helpless game. So what a helpless game is, you play it, the game goes long, you lose to, say, a late game Protoss army, and you feel totally helpless. You don't think there's anything you could have done better. It's really important to not make that excuse. Don't look at that game and go, I couldn't have done anything better. Look at it, go, hey, you know what? My opponent was really good. He played extremely well. I've had a few of those games where you look at it and the opponent is ahead or even with you on like a probe count, and he plays extremely well. He takes his expansions at the right time. He has just enough units to hold off your attacks. You feel really helpless, like it was the other guy's race that was able to beat you. It's not the case. There's lots of things you can do to help yourself win games. I just played a game like that. Turns out somehow 8 of my medevacs had ended up in my main base, off in a corner, and I thought he killed them all. So I was looking at the supply trying to figure out where my army was, and I didn't have any healing, so I was trying to pump out medevacs. I ended up losing to the Colossus play because I just didn't have the Viking count to deal with it, because I needed the medevacs to heal my army. So it's really, really important when you watch a game, or you play a game, you don't call it a helpless loss. You don't go, there's nothing I could have done better. Because at the end of the day, if you put MVP in that same situation, in that same game, MVP probably wins it. So it's really important that you go, well, you know, I made a few mistakes, my opponent was really good. Compliment him, be positive about it. Don't think he was really bad and that's why you lost. You know, look at it, go, okay, yeah, my opponent played really well, that was pretty impressive, that's cool. What kind of mistakes did I make? How can I get better? Yeah, I hit most of my benchmarks, but what do I need to maybe adjust a little bit in the future, or did I get a bad engagement? What could I have done better? How could I have played better? Don't have a helpless game, and make sure you compliment your opponent when he plays well. If your opponent kills you with that 3-gate expand like my opponent did, cool, compliment him. Be like, okay, yeah, that was pretty impressive, he played really well. He didn't really cut any probes, he didn't take his third base in time, but overall, he played really well. I shouldn't have died to that, that's my fault. The last real major point I want to make on this is, ignore bad games. If you play really sloppy and you lose, look at the replay, go, okay, I didn't do my very absolute basics. There's nothing really to watch in this game. Just watch it, leave, move on to the next game. Completely ignore it, put it out of your memory. The other thing to consider with bad games is, I've lost to some really weird stuff, and when your opponent does beat you with something that's just weird and doesn't actually make any sense, it's not something you should do or would normally do, just ignore the game and move on. Don't try to analyze it for what I could have done better to win or stuff like that. If your opponent does, I had a really good example where my opponent did a 4-gate, and he made 2 pylons in my main base that I killed off with Marines. They didn't do anything, he didn't warp in, I didn't have to pull SCVs. It was just a really weird build, and he finally attacked me in like 9 minutes, and I lost to it, because, you know, who 4-gates somebody at 9 minutes? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? So when a situation like that comes up, just look at it, scratch your head, move on to the next game, don't worry about it. Some people are just going to do stuff that is quote-unquote stupid, and you just need to move on from that. Don't worry about it, it's just something that happens. Alright, I'm going to wrap it up here, but remember, always be positive. Never settle for being negative, never blame your opponent for doing something stupid, never blame the condition. Remember, there's always something you could have done better, but be positive when you go into your game. As soon as you load up and you go to start a game, be positive, know you're going to win. Have no fear, make no excuses. Just remember, if you're feeling good and you're positive about yourself winning the game, you're positive that if you execute your build properly, you're going to be in great shape. I've seen a lot of players that are in Silver and they're in Gold League. When I'm coaching them, they play at Diamond or Masters level. And the reason for that is as soon as they get on ladder, they get scared. They're not positive. They don't think they can win. It's really important that no matter what situation you're in, no matter how good your opponent is, you're positive. You feel like you can win every single game you play. That's exactly how I play ladder, and I have a fair amount of success with that attitude, and makes games a lot more fun. So just be positive. Don't make excuses. Be yourself and enjoy the game.